everyone, my name is Iv'e. I'm finally making the video I've wanted to make for a very long time. Today I'm ranking the bosses of Dark Souls 3 from worst to best. But that's not all we're doing. So what I did was made a list of all the bosses. A year later of playing the game on PS4, my opinions have changed a bit. So when we go over the bosses, I'll explain how far they went up or down. Remember, this is my opinion, so I would love to hear your opinions down in the comments below. Alright, without further ado, let's get to the very bottom of the pit. The Pit of Hollows, to be exact. Down at the bottom, and in my opinion, the worst boss in the game is the Curse-Robbed Greatwood. If you have fought or even seen this boss, you will understand why it is here. Let's start by listing the long list of bad things about this boss. It's incredibly easy. Just attack the nasty pus-filled sacs on its hand, leg, and crotch. Yes, it's crotch. He then falls down into this pit for you to just do it again. But this time, there's a hand coming out of his chest thing. Alright. Bad reason number 2 is that it's just plain nasty. The only good thing that comes out of the Greatwood is that you have to defeat it in order to get boss weapons. If this sounds harsh, yes it is. This is the only boss I truly despise in this game. Every other boss doesn't bother me in the way that the Greatwood does. Greatwood didn't move from last year's list at all. At number 24, we have the Deacons. There isn't much to say about this boss, it's just pretty easy and extremely annoying. You have to dodge constant fireballs cast by the Deacons. The fat Deacons have force, and the blue robe Deacons can heal the boss. Just in general, a really annoying boss to fight. Deacons also didn't move from last year's list. Number 23, we have the Ancient Wyvern. Let me just show a clip of why this boss is disappointing for what it could have been. So yeah, it may be the easiest boss in the game, but at least you get those few seconds of excitement, unlike the previous bosses. The Ancient Wyvern moved 0 places from last year's list. 22 is Wolnir. This is the first instance of a boss moving down from last year's list. 2 spaces. The reason I've learned to dislike Wolnir is just because he's become a bump in the road, and sometimes he can be a pretty big bump. You sometimes get horrible RNG where he will repeatedly summon and put away his sword in the second stage. It gets extremely annoying not being able to hit his Iv'e bracelets, so that's what lands him this low. Half-Light moved 4 spaces down. The PvP is pretty much dead, so you're stuck with the NPC. The fight is pretty boring and even BS at times, but when you get him to half health, he gets a Painted Guardian to help him. So we're not even including Half-Light as a boss on this list, we are replacing him with the Paired Ultra Greatsword Ringed Knight. This guy is the total GOAT. He's my favorite regular enemy in the game, so he's taken Half-Light's place at number 21. Similar to Wolnir, Half-Light has just become a bump in the road. Old Demon King is my least fought boss in the game, including the DLCs. He's incredibly boring, slow, and has broken hitboxes. I always choose to fight him late in the game around the princes. I feel like his design is lazy. I enjoyed fighting the wandering demons throughout the game more than the actual boss. Old Demon King dropped the most places more than any other boss. He moved down 5 spaces. At this point of the list, I don't dislike a single boss, it's just a matter of which bosses I like more than others. At number 19, we have the Crystal Sage. Only one thing bugs me about them. The floating crystal balls sometimes pass by you, and sometimes they go around and hit you in the back. He is a parryable boss, can handle the second stage very easily by using throwing knives to take out the clones, as they only can take 1 hit point. I learned to love the Sage's design over the last year. He moved up 4 spaces, the second most on the list. Vort is at our 18th spot. He is very easy if you know how to fight him. For the first stage, attack under his belly as 90% of his attacks don't hit you under there. He will start the second stage by charging you 2 to 3 times. He then does a frost blowing attack, leaving himself open for a lot of damage. After that is the same as the first stage, but he does more attacks to get you off from under him. Vort moved nowhere from last year's list. 17 is Gundyr. You might be asking how I could put the first boss in the game this high up. He's just better than every boss before him. The lore, the soundtrack, and the fight are all just good. He's easy to parry, you pretty much get a guaranteed stun in the second stage for some nice counter damage. We will talk about his lore later. Winky face. Gundyr moved up 1 space from last year's list. At 16 we have champions Gravetender and Wolf. So forget about the NPC, he's not what makes this boss decently high on the list. The Wolf is amazing. The attacks are outstanding with the effects in the Wolf's sound design along with the soundtrack. The frost particles around the Wolf as he lunges is just awesome. When the Wolf goes second stage, he gets even more aggressive than before and even spits frost. Anyways, in my opinion, I feel like this boss is highly underrated. Gravetender moved in no spaces from last year's list. Number 15. Number 15. Naked Dragon Osiris. The last thing about this boss is that is incredibly amazing is that he's vocal. No other boss talks during the fight that I know of. Once the king of Lothric, Osiris experimented on others, turning them into dragon-like creatures, eventually turning himself into one as well. He then had a child called Ocelot. He was born a child of dragons. During the fight, Osiris throws him down in rage and becomes more beast-like than human. This boss is incredible for his sound design. The soundtrack is also one of my favorites. Despite my love for Osiris, he actually went down one space from last year's list. That's the thing. I feel like I should make the list 4.5, 4.4, and 4.3, and so on. That's how close I love all these bosses. Spoiler for an upcoming video I'm going to make. My soul level 1 difficulty list has him within the top 3. Aldrich takes our number 14 spot. The design of Aldrich is incredibly unique. He will cast magic attacks that are well telegraphed. React too late and you'll get hit with a massive soul arrow. React too early and you'll get bombarded with a bunch of magic pellets. Run out of stamina and get ran over by an arrow rain. He deals insane damage if you don't react right. Aldrich is the God Eater. Some think he ate Nito from the first game. We know he ate the Dark Sun Grinling, as he literally has his crown. Aldrich moved up one space from last year's list. Number 13 might surprise you. Here we have Yorm. His difficulty is definitely on the lower side, but everything else overshadows it by so much. His soundtrack is probably in my top 5. The fire effects are outstanding on his weapon. His moveset, while easily dodged due to well-telegraphed attacks, is just amazing. Yorm became the Lord of Cinder to put the profane flame to rest, but in doing so accidentally wiped out the entire city he protected. Yorm gave Sigurd one of his 2 storm rulers and made him promise to end his suffering if he ever returned from the dead. Yorm's story is just incredible, and this is why he moved up the most spaces than anyone else at +9. Here we have the demons at number 12. The first stage is pretty basic, as one of them can only be powered with flame at a time, while the other stays at a distance using toxic ranged attacks. Depending on which demon you slay first, you will get different attacks in the Demon Prince stage. One calls meteors from the sky, and the other shoots a mega laser with uber range. I personally always go for the one with the meteors. The second stage always fills me with adrenaline. Every attack is devastating. Play it right and you will be rewarded. Also, fun fact, this is the same Demon Prince that Prince Lorien slayed in his lore. Demons actually moved down 3 spaces from last year's list. Number 11 I wish I could put higher, because I find Champion Gundyr stunning. It's just Gundyr, but 1,000 times better. Other than Gale, Frida, and Pontiff, he is probably the most aggressive boss in the game with his attacks. The huge drawback, though, is that he's the easiest boss to parry in the game. Gundyr came to Firelink Shrine, but his Firekeeper had already passed. He then stood guard of the shrine, testing Unkindled's worthiness. At the start of the game, we find him old, rusted, and infected with the pus of man. In Champion form, we go back to his younger self, where he is much stronger. I love this boss so much. Sadly, he moved down one space from last year's list. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now entered the top 10. Here are the bosses that remain. Dragonslayer Armor, Pontiff Sullivan, Twin Princes, Nameless King, Dancer of the Boreal Valley, Dark Eater Midir, Sister Freda, the Abyss Watchers, Slave Knight Gale, Soul of Cinder. And that is it, folks. Tune in the next week or so for the next episode, because I feel like me talking about these next 10 bosses are gonna take a while. So I'm splitting this up into 2 episodes. Can't wait to tell you guys all about it, and I'll see you guys within the next week.